If a man spends his life doing good deeds and caring for his neighbour, he dies without thanks or remembrance. If his brilliant mind brought sorrow and death to millions, his name will be remembered millennia and hundreds of generations later. A terrible reputation is always preferable to obscurity. Fabius Bile. The Immaterium, also known as the Warp, is both humanity's greatest boon and bane in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. It is a dimension of pure psychic energy that lies parallel to the physical universe, enabling faster-than-light travel through the warp drives of Imperial ships. This has indeed opened the way to the stars for mankind. However, the warp is also a realm of nightmares, home to the Chaos Gods and their demonic legions. The turbulent energies of the warp can breach into real space, creating warp storms that make vast swathes of the galaxy impassable and corrupting all they touch. Unstoppable flows of chaos energies penetrating the material world, distorting everything in their path, making whole sections of space uninhabitable. The maddening whispers of the warp's inhabitants, hungry for human souls, often cause devastating catastrophes that destroy entire worlds. Even the Emperor's best creations, his angels of death, often find themselves unable to resist temptation and turning into one of the worst nightmares of the universe, Chaos Space Marines. While the power of the Immaterium can undoubtedly be called limitless, Astartes traitors are still beings belonging to the real world, and like their loyal brethren, are purely physically incapable of spending every moment of their lives in battle. After all, even a tainted bolter can run out of ammo. However, the loyal Astartes are mostly orders of fighting monks with their own traditions, statutes, and discipline. It is challenging to categorize Chaos Space Marines' warbands uniformly, as the remnants of the original traitor legions have evolved divergently over the millennia. Each warband, often a fragment of a once cohesive legion, has developed its unique identity, traditions, and methods of warfare. As such, it's difficult to generalize about them. Unlike the disciplined and monastic orders of the loyalist Space Marines who follow a strict Codex Astartes or their own established chapter traditions, Chaos Space Marines are bound less by uniform codes than by their allegiance to the Chaos Gods, personal ambitions, and the will of their warlords. Chaos warbands vary widely in organization, tactics, and culture, reflecting the chaotic nature of the warp and the personal whims of their leaders. The notion of expecting Chaos forces to adhere to a uniform charter and routine is indeed misplaced. The very essence of Chaos champions individuality, ambition, and the rejection of the rigid order that defines the Imperium's military forces. Each warband or legion fragment operates according to its unique hierarchy, goals, and the capricious demands of the Dark Gods. It is foolish to expect forces of chaos to adhere to a strict charter and routine like loyal Astartes. Every Marine in the gang is no longer a defender of humanity. He is no longer bound by duty or oaths. All that matters to him is only his own ambition. Thus, most warbands exist only because of the will of a strong lord who is able to organize and keep the superhuman warriors who hate each other in line. Under such conditions, rigid discipline and routines would more quickly cause a riot than produce positive results. And so most of the time, Space Marines are allowed to go about their business as long as they do not pose a threat to the warband and the Lord personally. It's up to each individual to decide how they want to manage their free time. Some find their leisure time in orgies and festivals, some prefer to hunt slaves and mutants on abandoned ship decks, and some seek solitude and tranquility. After all, even Chaos warriors sometimes need to tend to their weapons or reflect on their own fate. Of course, even such freedom does not relieve Space Marines of their duties. After all, slaves always need supervision and extra motivation. One of the defining factors of a renegade's daily life is religion. The pernicious forces are commonly categorized into four main aspects, and the influence of each can hardly be overemphasized.
Look at me and know that I could kill you at any moment. Your only hope is to look deep inside yourself. There you will find Grandfather Nurgle. He is waiting to offer you life in exchange for your worship. Reject him and you are mine.
Astartes who have given themselves into the hands of the Plague Lord are forever deprived of haste and restlessness. Recognizing life in all its manifestations, cultivating in themselves the most unthinkable ailments, they become pieces of rotting meat fused to their armor. They have no need to care for their gear. After all, what's the point of polishing your helmet if you can't take it off for a long time? They aren't looking for battle's sake, and their intrigue can run for millennia. After all, they have nowhere to rush. The cult of Nurgle is well established in the Death Guard, and most of those who have accepted their grandfather join the war bands formed from the remnants of the 14th Legion. The sons of Mortarion can offer them a home. However, lack of haste does not mean lack of interest and ambition. It is foolish to assume that intelligent Marines spend all their free time in a comatose state. Although long periods of sleep are quite characteristic of them, the scientific endeavours of rebellious apothecaries often lead them into the arms of Nurgle. And eventually, even their own bodies become a field for countless studies. You are the war dogs of Khorne, and you will bleed and collect skulls in his name, shouted Angron. The servants of the Blood God, on the other hand, are not known for their calm and measured demeanour. It is difficult to remain adequate when every second of your existence your mind is tormented by only one desire: to kill. The lives of the servants of Khorne are fleeting and filled with bloodshed, and only the most resilient are able to control their rage. Those who have long since lost their minds in the chaos of eternal war cannot stand a moment's peace. That is why the ships of Khorne's servants often become battlefields in their own right. The Hunter of Souls does not care if his servants spill each other's blood. However, there are times when there is simply no one left to kill. And if the realization of this fact does not end with an act of ritual suicide, then in the life of such a Marine finally comes calm moments. However, even in their free time, Khorne's servants often spend their time in the fighting pits, often not even taking the time to care for their weapons. After all, blood is the perfect lubricant for a chain axe.
It is not for mortals to know or to judge the thoughts of the gods. Accept that Tzeentch has a place for all of us in his grand design, and be glad for the role that has been allotted to you.
The daily existence of the followers of Tzeentch, the Lord of Change, is complex and filled with constant scheming and the pursuit of arcane knowledge. For the Thousand Sons, particularly after the rubric of Ahriman, the concept of free time is largely irrelevant. The rubric was a spell cast by Ahriman, the chief librarian of the Thousand Sons, intended to halt the mutation inflicted upon his legion by their patron god, Tzeentch. Instead, it turned the majority of the legionnaires into rubric marines, dust-filled suits of armor animated by sorcery, devoid of free will and entirely subservient to the sorcerers of the legion, who retained their consciousness due to their psychic strength. For these sorcerers, life is an unending quest for magical prowess, knowledge and the furthering of Tzeentch's inscrutable designs. Their days are consumed with the study of the arcane, planning and executing complex plots, and navigating the treacherous politics of the warp. The search for new recruits to replenish their ranks, often drawn from those who show psychic potential, is a necessity given the static nature of the rubric marines. Thus, the notion of free time among Tzeentch's sorcerers is a misnomer. Their dedication to their god and the arcane arts is all-consuming, with every action taken in furtherance of their own power and the grand, ever-changing plans of Tzeentch. Even activities that might seem leisurely to an outsider are, for them, avenues to acquire more knowledge or influence. The fate of the Thousand Sons is indeed tragic, bound to a cycle of eternal servitude and pursuit of goals set by their god and their own ambition in the ever-shifting landscape of the immaterium. To suffer pleasure and relish suffering is the primary purpose of our lives. Fulgrim. If anyone in this universe knows how to manage their time, it's the followers of the Prince of Pleasure named Slaanesh. Luxurious feasts and perverted orgies, duels and all sorts of drugs that can break even a Space Marine's body. Nothing can compare to the Slaanesh slave's mind. Sculptures created from sewn and fused together bodies of still living people long ago do not seem to them something unnatural. It's hard to say anything definitive about their daily lives, as each of the Dark Prince's followers is unique in their madness, from the crazed artist to the musician who enjoys the cacophony of the immaterium. Anyone can meet anyone in their ranks, and in their madness they are united in only one thing. Anyone who falls into their hands will soon be begging for the luxury of a simple, albeit painful, death. Religion, however, is not the only determining factor in the daily lives of the traitors Astartes. The life of a veteran that remembers the Siege of Terror and the life of a recent convert can be seriously different even within the same gang. Those Nurgle servants who didn't stand with Mortarion on Barbarous can still burn with hatred and spend their free time hunting on the decks of their ship, while their older brothers just don't see the point. Some of the former legionnaires may still dream of former greatness and try to keep long, meaningless traditions alive, sticking to the old hierarchy and discipline of their legion. And some have long ago found a new purpose, which also affects daily life. For example, the Space Marines of the Word-Bearers have found themselves in the service of their new gods, spending their days in prayer and overseeing the mortal slaves who build more and more temples on the planets under their control. We should not forget about the Iron Warriors who, although they will never again find glory in the Empire, can now freely engage in their favorite occupation, the invention of new sedimentary machines and mechanisms. They are no longer constrained by the dogmas of tech priests and moral limitations. In their forge, horrifying symbioses of machines and demon flesh are born. In their madness, they have long ago crossed the line, distorting even the work of the Emperor himself in creating his own kind. The sinister invention of the Iron Warriors, the Dimonculaba, is one of the most sophisticated abuses of nature at the hands of the Astartes. It is a living woman with her uterus altered and bloated to unimaginable proportions, where candidates are placed. The Dimonculaba solves many of the Legion's reproductive problems. Space Marines bred in this device are born with full implants, but no skin at all. Those deemed unfit for further service are banished to the wastelands outside the cities, where they are doomed to an inevitable and slow death. The rest are given new skin taken from mortal slaves. Of course, such a mother can rarely ever survive the procedure, but when she does, she once again becomes an incubator for a new candidate, and this will continue until her imminent death. Few things can compare to the horror of everyday life as a renegade dreadnought. Unlike their loyal brethren, who fall into deep medicated sleep between battles, dreadnoughts are forced to spend all that time awake, lying inside their sarcophagi, separated from the war machine. They are deprived of all senses and are unable to make a sound. They are often left in complete silence and absolute darkness, alone with their thoughts for decades. This inevitably turns them into madmen obsessed only with the desire to die to end this eternal torture. The everyday life of a Chaos Marines is rarely routine. Life surrounded by potential traitors, access to forbidden knowledge and almost complete freedom of action can fill almost every day of their existence with events. Such a life can be called horrible, hard, crazy, but definitely not boring and routine. After all, when the essence of chaos itself is revealed to your eyes, it is strange to complain about boredom.